Okay, welcome everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. My name's Peter Giblett, and he is Dave Wheeler. Welcome, Dave. Right.
Welcome.
So, what you been doing? What you been doing this week?
Not much.
Yeah.
Day before yesterday, I was at a storytelling thing that my friend Vivian Little, who has been very well accomplished in Toastmasters, she's won the divisional contest 3 times and the District 86 competition once. And she started this. She went to McDougal Street and had what they called a story off the porch kind of thing. So I took a lawn chair and I went there, and and I was late. And the reason why I was late is because I went in my car and it wouldn't start. And I went and I got my jumper cables and asked my neighbor to come around, and we hooked up the 2 cars together, and it still wouldn't start. And I kept messing around until I finally realized the reason why it wouldn't start is because I didn't have my key.
So you got one of these push button ones.
Yeah. So I kept pushing the button, putting my foot on the brake, pushing the button. What the heck's wrong? And then I thought, well, I must have left it on because there's a function. If I press the button twice, I can listen to the radio, and I do that sometimes after I park. I do that if I want to listen to the rest of a news report or something. So I thought, oh man, I left it on, and with the air conditioning fan and all that, and I've run the battery down. But the fact of the matter is, I changed shorts and I have two.
So you'd left the car wide open, and you didn't have a key.
Well, no, yeah, I didn't have a key, so I kept trying to start it without a key. But the car was open, like you said, which would have, if I had locked it like I should have, that would have been the tip off. I don't have a key. But instead, I went to get my jumper cables, and my neighbor was there, and we connected things up, and I'm trying to figure out what went wrong until I realized, oh, wait a minute.
Don't you pat yourself down?
Well, you know what? I changed shorts just before I left to put a clean pair on. And I left my key in the shorts. The other shorts.
Your key was in the washing basket.
Well, it was actually in the washing machine, but not. I put it in there without any water. I dig it back out, and sure enough, there was the key. I put it in, and then I came back out, and now I happened to be rather. I can imagine
that key was going around in the washing machine as you got.
No, I didn't have it on. I just put it in there. I didn't have the washing machine on.
I know, but on another day, that would have been the last item of clothing you'd have put in there, and it would have been going round.
Yeah. So here I was, red-faced. I bothered my neighbor, got him out there, and I had messaged my friend that I was late because I had a dead battery. But that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah.
The worst part was admitting to my neighbor,
I fucked up.
I haven't got my key.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We left off yesterday asking this question: why doesn't Canada already have a stronger relationship with Mexico? And actually, there's a couple of interesting questions because. Claudia Scheinbaum almost says to this is like, well, why do we need one? We've already got USMCA, right? But also, one of the Laura McDonald, political science professor at Carleton University, is in part saying we have a language problem because we don't speak Spanish.
Well, yeah, but look how much trade the U.S. does with Mexico, an incredible amount of trade. They do more trade with Mexico than they do with us. And that's because and they have no problem with the Spanish language at all. We don't do a whole lot of trade with Mexico. They do more with us. They have a surplus with us, but we don't. And our the amount of trade we have is very limited. So what we're trying to do is expand that trade.
Yeah, we don't need a separate agreement. I agree with Scheinbaum. We don't need a separate agreement. We already have an agreement, a treaty.
The problem is, what is Trump going to do?
Trump might not live by it, but we can live by it.
Yes, and that's the whole point. They don't need a separate agreement because we have the USMCA. However, we may have to have adjustments to the agreement because of what Trump is doing and his aggressive tariff thing and the disruption in trade that's providing. So they're looking for more things like port to port, like for instance, softwood lumber. We may start sending a lot of softwood lumber there. We have things that they're just kind of exploring things that we have, they don't, that they might be getting from the United States at this particular time, and we may have the same thing. We've of course got aluminum, lots of aluminum, and other minerals that we can bypass the United States, but it's going to be difficult to get there because it's got to be port to port. It means we have to launch ships. Yeah, and the other way we could do it is do it by train. It could go from Canada through the U.S. to Mexico without getting a tariff on it. But if Trump doesn't like it, he'll come up with some reason why we shouldn't be able to do that.
Well, and actually, here's the irony about here's the irony when it comes to Canada, Mexico. You were talking about shipping yesterday. Shipping's a lot easier on the west coast of the United States. West coast of Canada and Mexico than it is doing the East Coast, because the East Coast is double the distance, because you've got to go down, not just down south. You've got to go through the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes, but it shouldn't be that much of a problem to go from, let's say, Port of Montreal. Yeah, or even Halifax, but Port of Montreal, probably you say you want to load up on aluminum, you could get there by ship. It depends. Yeah, so they're exploring different ways.
Yeah, it would take a little bit longer than the West Coast routes would.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's looking for a singular trade policy, but what we're trying to do is diversify our trade. Yeah. Quite a bit. I think every country in the world is trying to diversify their trade, trying to minimize how much we rely on the United States. Yeah. So this is just an attempt, basically. Probably also behind closed doors, they might be strategizing with one another on how the two weaker members of the trade deal that we have with the United States, how we can sort of stand together a little bit. Remember, Canada is the only country aside from China that fought tariff with tariff. Not even Mexico has. And Mexico gets a 90-day reprieve because Trump doesn't want to take on Mexico and Canada at the same time. Plus, Trump does not want the effects of tariffs from Mexico to affect. They would come in much more readily because a lot of it is seasonal fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So Trump is trying to delay the effects of tariffs until after the midterms. Every kind of report that I've kind of listened to, and I've dozens of them, there are people who are for the tariffs, people who are against them, but universally, they say that the effects of the tariffs will take quite a while to percolate down. We found that the car companies are losing a lot of money because they're eating the tariffs. We expect that things from And plus the U.S. has front-loaded massive amounts of. I came across a report somewhere where it talked about the massive amounts of front-loading the United States did prior to the. I mean, they've got warehouses upon warehouses upon warehouses filled with goods.
Yeah, so much for doing things on a just-in-time basis. They've just done them as we're going to grab as much as we can right now before the tariffs hit.
Yes, so it's going to affect the average person, but it may take a long time because, as we've discussed here, that the exporter will try to eat some of the cost, the importer will try to eat some of the cost, and then they'll gradually add it little by little. Plus, in items, what you used to get for a dozen tomatoes, you might have to pay that for 10 tomatoes now. So that they will do the shrinkflation thing. They'll make things smaller to keep the price the same. There's going to be a lot of things that the marketers are going to do to try to so that the consumer is kind of tricked about what they're buying. But eventually the tariffs will percolate down to the average person. And it's kind of amusing. I don't know if you there's no written report that I could see right up front, but Trump was giving out Purple Hearts or recognizing soldiers with Purple Hearts. But prior to that, he was in a meeting and he brought in his economist, Stephen Moore, and he had three sort of like public school type of graphs on an easel. And Stephen Moore said, "Oh, guess what? We found out that the jobs report was all wrong, and here's why." And if you look at who Stephen Moore is, he's a devout Trump loyalist. He is an economist, but he's a devout Trump loyalist. So he says, "Oh, here, look at this. Look how bad Biden was. Look how good you are. Oh, how the reports are wrong." So already Trump is getting one of his loyalists to come in and counter the statistics that the Bureau of Labor Statistics has recently released. That, of course, that commissioner of that bureau was fired because he didn't like them. So within a couple of days, another guy comes along and oh look, we've got another graph here, something that they didn't think of, which shows the opposite of what the commissioner.
The trouble is, you've heard the quote: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right?
Yeah.
The trouble is, you can actually, it is possible by being selective to actually tell anything with statistics, right?
Well, yeah, he had different data, evidently.
Yeah. And also you can use the same data. But it's how you summarize it that matters, or which months you use that matters.
Well, basically, the whole idea is to lie to the American people. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is imperfect in many ways, and lately less perfect because of a lot of the funding that is. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough funding. They can't even include some big cities because they just don't have the personnel to collect the data. So there is something to it, like the data actually the data is incomplete, and that's why there were revisions and stuff like that on it.
There's always incompleteness in data. I remember there was one time I was working with a statistician about something that he was trying to produce, and he had to produce this report on the Friday, and over the weekend more data came in, and he talked to me on the Monday. I said, "Oh my God, everything changed. The report I did based upon the Friday data completely, was completely wrong." Well,
that's the big problem with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. the readjustments happen all the time.
Yeah.
Because of the late reporting of a lot of people, it's hard to.
He got a whole heap of new data, over the weekend, which just basically automatically got added to his system. Right, when he reruns the stats on Monday, he gets a completely different figure than he did on Friday.
Yeah, so statistics has its limitations.
Yeah,
because of the data collection, but Stephen Moore, magically found different data that told a different story.
yeah.
Like, who's going to believe him? Seriously, who's going to believe him?
Okay, so moving on, Niagara, creating a Niagara wine region to rival Napa Valley still remains an uphill struggle for Niagara wine growers, even though this has been a stated goal for quite some time.
Yeah, they've kind of lagged back, but they had ambitious plans of making the Niagara region a particular. This article starts with the wine industry, but then carries on to other tourist, unexploited tourist potential.
There is a tourist potential here, insofar as obviously, if we've got a successful wine industry and the way that they do in Napa Valley, that Napa Valley tourism does in part come on purely because of the success of the wine industry there, right? So people plan to go to Napa Valley. They might not be going anywhere else in California, but they go to Napa Valley just for the wine industry.
Yeah, there's lots of tours there. My father did one, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
My father went to visit his cousin in California, and they did massive tours of the Napa wine facilities and wine growing facilities, the extent of which is amazing just in itself. So you could be a teetotaler, but still be amazed by the wine industry there and the vineyards that they're all over the place. And any good Californian will tell you that they saved French's wine industry because, back I don't know how long ago, there was a blight in France that killed countless amounts of their vines, and they had to get their vines from California to replant.
That was, I believe, in the 70s.
I don't know. I think the one I'm thinking of dates back later than that, but I'm not sure. So it says here that the 2023 report by Deloitte Canada, titled "Uncork Ontario," laid out blueprints to create the Niagara cluster, an independent market based on wine industry, with the potential to boost the local economy by $8 billion over 25 years. That's big, but barriers remain preventing Niagara from reaching the economic holy grail. The report had highlighted how Niagara's potential has been stymied, allowing other well-known wine regions such as Kelowna, BC, and Napa Valley, California, to expand and prosper. So we're behind.
Well, John Peller of Andrew Peller Limited said local wine industry here needs supporting policies and best practices from our higher levels of government.
Yes. So in the article, so a hero has appeared from the Ontario government who has committed to expanding the tourist destination, and that would be the sitting front row was Ontario Tourism, Culture and Gaming Minister Stan Chow, with Niagara West Conservative MPP Sam Ustinov, who said later that while he was not carrying a check, there's good news coming for the tourist industry sometime in the next several months. So basically, we know that the Ontario government has tried to has plans to stimulate the tourist industry here, exploit it better than it is exploited now, and it shows. And they have statistics here that show how much tourists spend here and how they are spent in other places. They say that Vegas gets like 24 million people every year. The Giza pyramids in Egypt get 15 million, and we get 12 million. They feel that that's an underexploited industry, and it's not just due to the wine industry, which they hope to incorporate. So they call this Niagara supercluster. It encompasses many industries, creating an interconnectedness that is self-reinforcing engine. And I'll tell you the stats once I find them. For instance, each visitor to Las Vegas spends $2,500, including $800 for gambling, while in Niagara, it is $119 per person and $83 on gambling. So we underperform in spending.
Yeah,
that's what the claim is.
Yeah, that's what the claim is. Yeah, I was looking at that. I was just going to mention that myself. Yeah, but again, the how much people spend. So a visitor to Las Vegas spending $2,500. Yeah, okay, $800 for gambling. It's about they're getting. I suppose it's about the value proposition that you're putting on a resort, right? Maybe they're not putting the value proposition on Niagara in the same way.
Well, it's the entertainment and how Vegas has, although Vegas right now is declining rather rapidly, and that has to do with the economy and lack of tourists. Apparently, the Canadian contingent down to Las Vegas has dropped off mightily, and it's very concerning for Las Vegas, as well as many other tourist resorts in the United States that depend on Canadians.
One of the things that that Vegas does very well at is things like conferences and events. It's exceedingly good at events. I don't think we are anywhere close to Vegas on that on that scale.
No, we don't have the big shows and the big. You know, they have Cirque du Soleil 24/7 kind of thing. They have. I've been there and I've walked around, and I've just happened. You go to the casinos, you can get a lot of free entertainment. I saw a jazz combo there one time. They were just the best.
Well,
and it was just completely free. I just sat down and had a beer and listened for an hour or more. This combo.
But the interesting thing is that sometimes some people you can actually go watch the music for free, but you might spend a few $100s on other things while you're watching the music for free.
But there's lots of entertainment that cost, but it's there. So you can go to Vegas and see many different entertainments. You can pay for those entertainments. I had relatives in California, and they would go to Vegas and they wouldn't gamble at all. They would just go there to see the shows.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, in fact, actually, I've known most of the people I've known who've gone to Vegas have usually gone to conferences and the like, corporate events, conferences.
Well, it says here one of the reasons why this area is underexploited is because we don't have an airport link, and they're trying to expand that. If they can get a 5,000 foot long runway, I think it's 5,000 foot, maybe it's 5,000 meters. I'm not sure, but anyway, if they can get that, no, 5,000 meters would be 5 kilometers. That's not right. So it must be 5,000 foot.
5,000 foot, yeah.
So they need that in order to bring in the big jets. they can bring smaller ones with their current expansion to 2,500, but that would make a big difference. Plus, it would serve the area because
Yeah,
this
but
is,
also,
I think, the 13th most populated area in Ontario or something like that.
but
So it
again,
would serve the community as well.
I would say we should move the airport away from Niagara-on-the-Lake and put it to there could be better places we could put an airport. Because you're basically
the worst case scenario.
You're hopping the bridge and dumping the plane down on the runway.
Well, no, you're not hopping the bridge because you come in way higher than the bridge.
Yeah, but then what you're doing is you're coming higher than the bridge and then dropping the plane down.
No,
right?
No. They would come at a different angle.
I've seen them do it.
Well, we don't know what the big ships are going to be doing, but I could see a problem because a plane that sort of doesn't land properly and then mows through dozens of vines of grapes.
That's why I say the thing should be moved. The airport needs to be moved.
Yeah, well, it's not going
to have a fully functional airport. You see the acreage that Pearson's got, the size of Pearson as an airport, is absolutely massive compared to, it would take up half of Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Well, that's it. Well, how much vineyards would it take? But
yeah, a lot.
They don't say anything as if they're going. They're talking about expanding the one they have. So they also talk about the Shaw Festival, and when people come to the Shaw Festival, they spend more because they come. They come there and they spend money on the show, and then spend money in the area. So they say for every $1 spent at the Shaw, when people come to see a play, they spend another $7 locally, or something like that. Anyway, 6 or 7 times as much in the local community.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody's going to have something to eat, and they do a little shopping, blah, 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 blah. Here it is. The airport says it expands. Now there's a typo. It says Pilon said the airport wants to extend Tits runway to 2,500 feet. Tits instead of its. With all this AI and Chat GDP and all that other stuff, and they missed that spelling. Tits. Anyway. Eventually reaching right now they want to expand the runway to 2,500 feet and eventually 5,000 feet to accommodate larger passenger planes. The plan includes expanding terminal buildings. Yeah, well, as soon as you do that, you start eating up the vineyards, don't you? And the agricultural land that's there.
Yeah.
Anyway, it says Canada's 13th largest metropolitan area, which expected to jump to 700,000 people by 2051. So just they can make the argument that it could serve a rather large area, populated area on itself, regardless of the tourist benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, it can make some difference insofar as we could go to other places.
Yes. So it's I'm trying to find the it says for every $1 spent at the Shaw, $7 are spent in the community. Yeah, so that confirms what I remembered.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Right now, just about everybody says that the tourism and vineyards are underexploited.
Yeah.
That there are plans to expand and become on par with BC and Napa. We've lagged behind.
Yeah.
Ours is stymied. So exploitation of the vineyards, adding it to the tourist component of the region, and trying to squeeze more money out of every tourist that gets here, which is the undercurrent there. My God, they're only spending X amount, while in Vegas they're spending Y amount. So how do we squeeze more money out of the tourist? Well, of course, we do that by expanding the appeal.
Well, actually,
stay a little longer. Now there is one problem. Okay, go ahead.
There's a couple of things that I've been hearing about. Right, there's music tourism, which we are doing. We are moving that one ahead. Right. We also got museum tourism, which is never really been understood by our local city. We've also got local, the local local historical sites tourism, which again I don't think is adequately understood by our regional tourist people.
Well, it says here people are drawn to areas with specialized foods and activities.
Yeah, that as well.
Harry Hardwick, chair of the Niagara Geopark, touted the area becoming the next UNESCO Global Geopark. So we're very close to getting that distinction, so he claims.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that'll boost the appeal of the area.
I'm not sure we will ever get that distinction.
Well, they claim that they're looking for it. But,
yeah,
but there's enough here. There's enough there. There's the history, the vineyards, of course, the falls. So there's other things that may be able to contribute to that. But basically, we're not shaking down enough money out of the tourists, and we can do better than that. We're drawing in 12 million people, which is a lot, but we're not spending that much.
Yeah, but again, you can't shake down a tourist. You've got to give them value as to places to spend their money on, right?
You got to shake them down without them knowing you're shaking them down.
Exactly. Thank you. Whereas I believe our city council at the moment and our hoteliers in Niagara Falls overtly shake them down. They literally the customer comes in, they hold them up by their feet and shake vigorously until all the money drops out.
Now it's kind of interesting. Part of what they said here, they're talking about, you can put some 5-star hotels in Niagara on the Lake, and that might help. But that was countered by, no, we need to be able to attract the less affluent tourists. The 5-star hotel is not going to bring in as many. It will bring in some, but you still have to have the accommodations for the average everyday tourist.
And that's actually one of the things that Vegas, for example, excels at, right? Because they've got spectacular rooms in some of those. I've heard comments from people who've got no money who said they've gone to Vegas and they stayed in the most phenomenal room there ever was.
Well, when I was flying back from Vegas, I landed in Vegas. I've been there a couple of times, but it was for work.
Yeah.
And for my union business. And so I took off one time I took off and went to visit my relatives in California, and I drove around and went to the Grand Canyon, et cetera, et cetera. So another 4, 5, 6 days. I forget how long it was, under a week, but almost a week. And I had rented a car. And when the night before I flew out, I needed a place to stay. And there was all kinds of little hotels that cost, I think the one I was in cost $29. And that's basically that they try to get you in cheap, because every one of them has little gambling outfits in them. Like they've got lounges or restaurants or bars that are full of one-armed bandits and everything else like that. So basically they want you in there, and hopefully that you will then gamble, that's where they'll make their money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So so we have to do more. We have to do better, right? Is the answer, really, across the board. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. Ontario Labour Federation urges more protections as air quality concerns are growing.
Yeah, there's a couple of different articles with air quality.
Yeah.
One from complaints of Republicans in the states, and here the Ontario Federation urges more worker protections, air quality concerns, because the Ontario air quality is getting tainted by wildfire smoke. Now, it hasn't hit us so bad here, but evidently it's sort of blanketing areas of the province, maybe even Toronto. So the 55 unions across the province says the push is part of the broader heat stress strategy, looking how climate change is compacting the work conditions.
Actually, Dave, the other day I would say that I came out at lunchtime in St. Catharines and was looking around. I can't remember what day I was looking around, and I was thinking it was looking, even though it was very bright sunshine, I was looking and thinking how murky the sky looked. You know, I'm thinking I couldn't smell anything, but I was thinking the air quality index must be pretty damn poor in St. Catharines. This was.
Yeah. So it's having an effect in a big way. Looks like I'm gonna have to close my windows. The lawnmower is out there now today.
Yeah. It's not yet 8 o'clock. They're wow.
There they went.
So much for 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., eh?
Yeah. They come at different times now. They used to just come in the morning, but sometimes they come a little bit later on. It's going to be noisy here for a little while.
That's okay. We'll get through it. Yeah, so basically this air quality thing has been a big issue and growing concerns. And yeah, of course, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has been facing calls from US politicians who are throwing temper tantrums over the wildfire smoke that we're exporting to them. Well, we're not exporting, but
yeah, like the Republican, not the Democrats, but the Republican, they're looking for something to say because they're under a lot of stress because they're not allowed to say anything on just about anything without approval from the dear leader. If the dear leader doesn't, so they're really like they don't know what to do when they go after Pelosi for making money off the stock market while she was in office, and then they say the same thing. They're going to close that door. Suddenly, Trump doesn't like it because he thinks they're going to come after them. So they don't know what to say half the time. So it's pretty safe to complain about Canada, and it's pretty safe to complain about the forest fires. Now, who's going to be able to do that? So what they're saying is Canada isn't predicting these fires well enough. Their forest management is not good enough, and all this. And Kinew, basically, Premier Kinew just says, "Oh, get a life, quit." He pretty much says, "What a bunch of wimps." Like, you got nothing better to talk about. These are wildfires. There's areas of drought. There's
He's right. You know, hey.
And actually, it's pretty serious in Manitoba. They lost a couple of people with a fast-moving fire not long ago. A man and a woman was killed by one because of the speed at which it was going. I know people up there. Well, one of the reasons they may have something to say about this because the Canadian government withdrew a lot of funding for firefighters. And firefighters who are in Ontario and are just fighting minor fires will not lend their firefighters to Manitoba or anywhere else if they feel that they're going to have a problem. So what we're doing right now, and Kinew points this out, look, the province is full of Americans helping us, American forest firefighters helping us. So we thank the Trump administration. We thank others who have helped us, but don't forget that we help you all the time, anytime you got big fires, we go down there.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's normally the way it is within, within the fire community, because we hear this all the time. We've seen fire specialists going from one part of the world flying right across the world to help a country in need because of a fire that's going on.
yeah, it says here, Wisconsin State Republican. Now, you're not getting comments from the Democrats, just the Republicans. Calvin Callahan joined Republican state lawmakers from Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota in filing a formal complaint against Canada. Hey, what's the matter with you? Stop those forest fires. You're not allowed to have any forest fires. Stop it. Stop it. It's making smoke. Well, yeah. Well, it's making smoke in Ontario, too. I mean, it's making smoke in all the places in Canada where it's happening.
Well, and again,
it sounds like really stupid. They say that we're mismanaging our firefighters and we should be able to protect them better.
How do we? How does I'm intrigued by how can you implement more worker protections if there's a question about air quality concerns?
Well, there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. Now, I can tell you right now that if you're working construction or industrial construction like I did, they may give you a paper filter mask, which you're not going to use anyway because your face will get all rashed up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Exactly. Yeah. Many of these paper masks are not going to be used because they'll be more in the way than they will be of assistance.
It's hot. You're struggling to get air half the time anyway.
Yeah.
If it is overwhelming, they'll just shut down the work site, but quite often they don't. So a lot of outdoor workers are, I can't see if they can find comfortable paper masks for them to use. Like, you're not going to be able to use an N93, but it covers your whole face, and it's okay if you're breathing normally, but if you're working, you need more air, and those things will just impede the airflow.
Well,
it might cut out the soot and stuff like that. What the unions are talking about is combining this with the heat stress thing. And believe me, I've worked in a lot of these places.
Oh, I get it.
They turn their back on the heat stress thing in a big way. Because they have a job that's got to get done. And I've worked in some of the hottest, god-awful places.
And hey, if you're 45 floors up a building that's going to be up 60 floors, you've got to be working whether the temperature's plus 40 or minus 40.
Yes. Well, I've worked in environments that are way higher than 55. And actually the work had to get done, so you had to do it. I remember working at the cyanamide plant here on 4th Avenue, where it still is. I was working in a furnace. What they do is they the molten furnace material is still molten, and so they just shut off the electrodes, and what they do is they throw in a whole lot of mix just to sort of cover up the molten stuff, and then they would weld in screen around it, which we could stand on and work inside. Well, I was working in the furnace, and I looked down at my feet, and my shoes are on fire. My shoes are on fire. So you can imagine how hot it was in there.
Yeah.
The only thing we could do is jump out and stand in front of a fan for a few minutes, and then jump back in. Yeah. So that job had to be done. So it was going to get done, no matter how hot it was.
Yeah, the job's got to get done, even if you're taking, frequent fire breaks, which is essentially what you were doing, right? You were taking.
I think it was number 6 furnace. I wonder if Gary Wilkins knows. I think it was number 6 furnace. He worked there for a while, so he would know.
Yeah, but you see, that's the whole point. Is in jobs like that, they've got to get done. And you jumping in and out of them in order, as a safety precaution anyway, right?
Yeah, I do remember we snuck into one of the control rooms, which it was air conditioned, and we were just drenched in sweat. And I remember my partner is an English guy, guy I was working with, and we just kind of fell down on the floor basically and breathed. And then we leaned up against the wall. But the job had been done, so we were good. We needed our next job, so we took a little respite in an air conditioned place. But so look, heat. There are limitations of the safety because job has to be done.
Yeah.
And this protection has to happen.
Well,
but there's all kinds of gray areas where it doesn't have to happen. And if you want to protect yourself from smoke and soot, there's a couple different ways. You can have a positive. You can have a filter going through. You can have a little air pump that draws in the air and then puts it into a kind of a mask or a hood that you wear, and so that's positive air filtering, and the other one were negative air filtering. And the positive one is the one with the masks, and there's some really, really good masks. The problem is they get a bit with cartridges, they get a little bit heavy, and if you're working in hot areas, they start to chafe your skin. It can't be helped.
Well, it occurs to me there's climbers who go up Everest often take air tanks with them, and
yes, because there's lots of soot up there.
No, it's not about soot. It's about the thinness of the air. But they often use the air. They just basically put the thing over their face, turn it on for a second or two to give them additional oxygen.
Yeah. Well,
you could do that.
That can't happen here because the soot is the thing that's doing the damage.
You couldn't do that in an industrial area because the oxygen could ignite, couldn't it?
No, but also, even if it wouldn't ignite, that's not what you're looking for because of the contaminants in the air. Just by adding oxygen once in a while, the contaminants are doing their damage.
I would have thought that if you took some oxygen into your lungs, it would help you.
No, you're talking about the soot and the contaminants in the air. So by taking a mask and taking a bit of oxygen and then breathing normally, you're still getting the soot and the pollutants into you.
Yeah, it's really.
I know. We had I was working on the coke ovens a few times, and we had pretty good masks with us, but I'm telling you, they were so uncomfortable. And it was like 100 degrees. One day it was 100 degrees, but it was over 90 for much of the time I was on that job, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And we had to have Nomex coveralls, fireproof coveralls, which were quite heavy.
Of course.
So you can imagine the heat. And we're beside a coke oven that was they weren't pushing coke, but the coke was still inside being heated while we were doing this job. So, I mean, it was incredibly hot. And of course you had all kinds of contaminants coming out of the coke ovens themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier said than done. How do you protect somebody from those kind of fumes so they can still work and still breathe?
Yeah. Well, it's not an easy answer to this anyway, whichever way you deal with it. And we've had some incredibly bad seasons of forest fires, unfortunately.
Yeah. So the Republican representatives, the wimpy representatives, that are looking for something to talk about, and that's what Canoe is implying there.
Yeah.
Haven't you got these are wildfires, there's drought, they're going to happen. We can't predict when they're and how they're going to happen because a lightning strike can happen at any time. So you have you have a decade or two with low rainfall. You're going to get more fires. That's all there is to it. And the same thing happens in the States. We find right now that there's wildfires in California. Well, what's it doing there, right? It's contaminating people. I mean, if the wind turns around and it starts blowing north, are we going to go then to start complaining the United States that you are? And what about, like I said before, 50% of our air pollution in Ontario, Southern Ontario, comes from the United States.
Okay.
So why don't we go there and say, hey, look, you can't manage your industry. You're giving us all this pollutant.
Lee Monty asked the question, puts the thing here. Did the people along the North Shore of Lake Ontario wear masks when Hamilton steel companies were working 7 days a week back in the day?
Well, fortunately, the steel industry is much, much cleaner than it ever used to be. And
that might be true today, but it wasn't. Obviously, he's talking about a different time.
No, they didn't. And they didn't have that kind of consideration back then. We know about that town in I think it was it Pennsylvania or something, 1948. Yeah. The whole town got so smogged in because of the steel mills that the people actually had to leave the city. So and I've been in China back in 2007, and I always thought this is the smoggiest place or the foggiest place ever, but it wasn't fog. It was pollutants. It was coal burning. Smog would be similar to what London must have, the London smog.
Well, my dad used to tell me about the pea supers, he called them, right? It's what they were called back in the day. So, yeah, they were pretty bad.
Pea supers here are the Quebecois because pea soup is a famous Quebec dish. So if you hear somebody talking about the pea supers here, it might be an old guy with an old nickname for people from Quebec.
Right. Moving on. Italy's greenlighting a project to build the world's longest suspension bridge, and this is a fascinating bridge because it's bringing rail traffic as well as 6 lanes of car traffic of road traffic across the border. And instead of it being an hour and a 90-minute journey to get across to Sicily, it's going to be 10 minutes.
So this is a 3.3 kilometer bridge, which would make it the longest in Europe. It would beat the one in Turkey.
Yeah,
but this is a project that was originally supposed to happen 20 years ago.
Yeah, but that's typical for the Italian government, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, and probably the money and resources they didn't have them at the time. Whatever happened, you remember what happened in 2006, 2007 anyway. We had the crash.
And whatever Giorgia Meloni says, the Italian Prime Minister, I still think it's probably not going to happen.
There are a lot of hurdles. I believe it will happen because this will open up Sicily for more development.
I agree.
But they have problems, and in order to get this going, it looks like they're resolved to do it. But one of the problems is the mafia. How do you keep the mafia out of it? The mafia is still a very strong presence in southern Italy, and particularly Sicily. How are you going to keep them out of it? How are you going to keep mob contractors out of it? Anything like that. Theft, whatever else. The other problem is defense. The Italian military has pointed out, look, this is a big deal. It's going to become a target. And how do we prepare for that? How do we prepare for it being a target by terrorists, or if there's a war, or whatever else? We saw what the bridge from Russia to Crimea. We can see that that's been targeted several times by the Ukrainian Air Force. So that's a consideration. How do we defend it and that? But the very idea that you can get from Sicily to mainland Italy in 10 minutes rather than 90 or 100 minutes, which is more than an hour and a half. Plus, you can train cargo, ship, trucking, all these other things that will stimulate the economy of Sicily is pretty good thing. So I expect it to go ahead, but it'll take until 2033, I think they said, to build it. They start now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Earthquake, it has to be earthquake
year.
resistant too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It has to be earthquake resistant. You know, and absolutely, because that's an area of natural earthquakes.
It's also an area of volcanic
It is,
activity. Mount
it
Etna,
is,
for
but
one.
that's a different concept altogether. Because if a volcano happens and flows down on it, there's pretty well nothing you can do.
Well, you know, the Italians, they want to take a shortcut. They might go, you know, over top of the volcano. You know, oh, here's a mountain. We could start here because it's easier to put the span on. Well, that's Mount Etna, buddy.
Yeah, I don't think so. Somehow, one of the most anyway. You know, volcanoes are a different problem, but again, earthquakes is something that they would typically build into this anyway. Not that I'd like to be on a 3-kilometer bridge when it starts shaking.
I don't know if you ever worked with a crew that's mostly Italian. Well, I will take a camera there to study all the hand gestures and try to sort out all the arguments, because there's going to be lots of yelling between workers. It's going to go like I'm sure that if the Chinese go there, which they're probably very quiet and everything, but you get an Italian construction crew out there, there's going to be lots of this and lots of arguments.
The bridge will be swaying like this, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, 2 weeks ago, I don't know if I told you that I got there was an accident on the QEW, right? And I was going across the Garden City Skyway, and you know, that bridge really isn't built for 80 cars per 100 meters or some, you know, the equivalent of 80 cars per 100 meters, or maybe even 100 cars per 100 meters, right? It's not built for that kind of thing, because if you're going across that at normal speed, even if you were going across at, say, 30 kilometers an hour, you'd still have 100-meter gaps between cars. But when you're going across and there's everything's full stop on the other side, there's no gap. There's a 3-meter gap between, or less than a 3-meter gap between cars.
Yes, you got to drive carefully.
And everything that's going on the other side, as a truck goes across the other side, the entire bridge shakes.
Well, can you imagine how Italians drive? Can you imagine this bridge, how Italians drive? Have you ever been in Rome or Italy? See how they drive?
Yeah.
If there's 2 lanes of traffic, they'll shove 5 cars in it, and they'll just drive like maniacs. I remember an old lady.
Well, actually,
when I was in Rome, an old lady, I was about to cross the road, and she grabbed me and pulled me back and told me that I'd get killed if I went. And she was right, because a moment later, even though I had right away, 5 cars in 2 lanes ripped around the corner, followed by more 5 cars and 4 cars in 2 lanes. They just jam in together.
Well,
I think it's madness going back and forth across that bridge.
I was actually in an northern Italian city, and there's like a 7-junction roundabout with a police officer in the middle directing traffic about where you should go. So he looked at his clock. It's 12:30. He put his cap on, walked away. Everybody surged forward. I picked my way through the traffic, went off to the township, and 2 hours later, I came back through that same traffic, and everything was exactly where it was 2 hours earlier.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun going back and forth across that bridge. I think probably they talk about the bridge being an environmental problem for migratory birds and things like that, but I think it'll scare away all the wildlife, because you can imagine how many horns would be honking on that bridge in Italy.
Yeah. Okay. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand another problem entirely. Okay. All right. But I love when I see these things about world record bridges and that sort of thing coming along, I'm going, yep. I know this isn't a world record, but this is a European record, I believe. I know, construct the world's longest suspension bridge. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's I've been across some pretty spectacular ones when I was in Portugal last year, and also tunnels. Man, I was in a tunnel that was, I think it was 5.5 kilometers long or more. And I thought, wow, is this tunnel ever going to end? And
there's a tunnel on one of the highways. There's a tunnel under a mountain in one of the highways in the US that I felt the same. It's like, well, suddenly it's like I didn't know we were going under a mountain.
Yeah,
and it seemed to be about 5 kilometers long.
Yeah, they have some pretty spectacular, really long bridges in Portugal. As a matter of fact, right in Lisbon, they have one there. You can see that it's in. I went over it basically.
Yeah, there's
went
one
over to come back to Lisbon. It is huge. Goes right across that estuary.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, exactly. But there's one that comes. Lisbon's quite. Well, there's a hill in Lisbon, but on the other side of the estuary, the landscape is much higher. It's much higher. So this bridge would come straight out across, and actually it came out from the southern side and started dipping immediately. It still had a long way down, but it was pretty spectacular because it was kind of sloping downwards into Lisbon. I don't know if you went over the same bridge, but that's the one I remember.
Well, the really long one, the really, really long one, a little bit east of the city center.
It ends up spiraling down.
I can't remember the spiraling stuff, but I do remember how long it was.
Yeah.
And it was extremely long. It's in the eastern part of the city. So if you're in the docking areas, right, and you look east, you can see it. It's impossible to miss. And it's one of the longest bridges I've ever seen. Yeah. And it's huge. I remember going over it in a little Fiat 500.
No, we had a rental car that wasn't a Fiat.
Well, I had a rental car that was a Fiat 500 because it was the cheapest one. And I believe we talk about underpowered. Holy cow.
Up there, I would think it would be, yeah.
I was shifting all because Portugal is very hilly. There's lots of mountains and hills and stuff like that. So I was downshifting, then upshifting, then downshifting as a little standard, eh? 6 gears. 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Because you hit a hill, even though you've got a lot, you're going 100K or better, and you hit a hill, and all of a sudden, you find yourself slowing right down. So you have to gear down, then gear down again, then gear down again. Give it as much gas as you can.
Okay.
And then finally get over the hill, and then back down again.
Okay, so Lee Monty says the Garden City Skyway is 2.2 kilometers long, but what they're talking about here is the span between the two suspension posts is that's the span. That's when they measure the distances on these suspension bridges, right?
Yeah,
3.3 kilometers between the two stanchions on this suspension bridge, right?
Yeah,
that's the Garden City Skyway is 2.2 kilometers long, but it's on lots of stanchions, right?
It's not a suspension bridge too. That's another thing. It's not a suspension bridge.
Yeah, and for New Brunswick to PEI is 12.9 kilometers, but again, it's not a suspension bridge.
Yeah, that's a causeway, isn't it?
I believe that's a causeway. Yeah. Which and there is a bridge on it because I believe there's a shipping lane on it, isn't there?
I'm not so sure. I went over it. I've gone over it a couple of times, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
No, I do remember looking at it one time because I was looking at these long bridges, and I believe that one's got it's got a section of it there's a section of it that comes up high to allow it to go over shipping.
Yeah, possibly. I can't remember now. I know I've gone over it a few times.
It's
But
either that or
but that was long ago. That was like
long ago, yeah.
2080 or 1983.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. But it's a causeway more than anything else.
Well, I went over it in style too. I was in a 68 Vet. Wow.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There are lots of long bridges. There are lots of long bridges out there. Suspension bridges are actually very interesting, very intriguing, because there's a lot. The cabling there all holds it together, and everything's based upon the cabling, and that suspension. The suspension. It's what all holds it together.
It's a remarkable feat of engineering, and it has to be there has to be enough dampeners in it. So if they do have high winds, it won't hit the frequency of the bridge. There's their famous suspension bridge that fell down in the States. If you when the winds got up and the suspension bridge started to wave, and the suspension bridge actually the wind multiplied the frequency of the bridge, so wave motion started happening through the bridge.
That happened in London. That happened in London. There was a suspension bridge put over the Thames that was actually a pedestrian bridge, and what they did in order to increase with the suspension bridge, it's normally vertical, and in order to increase the ability to see, they made the suspension cables like this. The trouble was, as they hit wind, when they built it practically, as they hit wind, the thing would buckle. And when you're walking over a bridge, incoming call from Stuart identified by Truecaller.
Well, the one I'm talking about was a big one in the United States, not a pedestrian one. It was for cars.
Yeah,
and there's nothing they could do about it. But at least they learned that they had to take away a frequency that the bridge would have, because everything has a certain frequency.
Oh yeah, and they had to do the same.
When I hit a high C when I'm doing my opera lessons, I hit a high C and all the glasses burst in my cupboard. Everything has a frequency.
Yeah,
so
I know.
You take away that
and
frequency.
That was the whole point about that particular one in London as well. They had to find out what that frequency was. They'd never measured, they'd never modeled it, you see. Anyway, we got to get going.
All righty then. I'll mention Gaza again. Things are getting worse there. Netanyahu's going to take over Gaza and nobody's going to stop him. And he's going to crush those people even more. He is a sadist. And without further ado, I will bid you adieu.